Rain slashed across the luxury car's hood as officers Harlan and Tate cornered the black woman. Harlan slammed her face first against the vehicle. Her designer purse crashed to the pavement, contents scattering in dirty puddles. "Driving in Oakwood while black. Big mistake," Harlan snarled, striking her shoulders with his baton. The crack echoed through the empty streets. "Please, I'm just—" Her words vanished as Tate forced her to her knees in filthy water. "Shut up! Hands where we can see them!" Tate shoved her head down. The woman's breath caught. Her suit, worth more than their monthly salaries, soaked through instantly. Her police academy ring glinted under the streetlights as she braced herself. Her government phone slid from her jacket, screen illuminating with an incoming call from Commissioner Victor Lang. Neither officer noticed. They were too busy laughing. Have you ever seen someone abuse their power before realizing who they were dealing with? Share your story below. Their smiles would vanish the next day when they discovered whose ribs they had just bruised. Captain Alexis Harper arrived in Westridge to take command of the troubled 5th Precinct. Her reputation preceded her. After years cleaning up corrupt departments across the country, law enforcement circles knew her simply as the reformer. She stood in her hotel room, unpacking her crisp uniforms while reviewing personnel files on her laptop. The commissioner's email glowed on her screen. The 5th had the highest number of excessive force complaints in the state. "We need your expertise." Harper closed the file with a sigh. She had seen this pattern before. She decided to spend her first week observing undercover. Knowledge is power, and she needed to see her officers' true behavior, not the performance they would give once they knew who she was. Harper changed into civilian clothes. Dark jeans, a simple blouse, and a tailored jacket. Professional but unremarkable. Her plan was methodical. Drive through different neighborhoods at night, taking notes on patrol patterns, response times, and officer interactions. She paid particular attention to how officers treated citizens in wealthy versus low-income areas. Meanwhile, officers Harlan and Tate cruised through Oakwood's tree-lined streets in their patrol car. The affluent neighborhood had an unspoken policy. Any suspicious individuals who didn't fit the profile of residents got stopped, questioned, removed if necessary. "Another quiet night in paradise," Harlan said, finishing his coffee. Then he spotted it. A black sedan moving slowly down Maple Avenue, occasionally stopping. "Check it out," he nudged Tate. "Someone's casing houses." Through their windshield, they watched Harper's vehicle. A black woman driving alone, occasionally pulling over to make notes on her phone. "Definitely not from around here," Tate agreed, already flipping on the dash cam. "Let's see what she's up to." Harper noticed the patrol car in her rearview mirror. She recognized the subtle stalking pattern. They were following her, waiting for any minor infraction. She pulled into a legal parking spot to finish her observations, knowing what came next. The patrol car's lights flashed on immediately. Harper remained composed, her hand hovering over her credentials in her purse. If necessary, she would identify herself, but part of her wondered what these officers did when there was no badge to stop them. Harlan exited the patrol car, hand already resting on his holster. Tate flanked the other side of Harper's vehicle. Their posture broadcast aggression, not protection. "Get out of the vehicle now!" Harlan shouted, unholstering his taser without provocation. Harper raised her hands where the officers could see them. She complied with measured precision, opening her car door slowly and stepping out into the rain. Water immediately soaked through her clothes, but her expression remained controlled. "Good evening, officers. Is there a problem?" Her voice was steady, professional. Harlan circled her like a predator. "What are you doing in this neighborhood?" "I'm new in town, just familiarizing myself with different areas." Harper maintained eye contact, her posture non-threatening. Tate snorted. "Yeah, right. People like you don't just familiarize themselves with Oakwood unless they're looking for something that doesn't belong to them." The coded language wasn't subtle. Harper caught every implication, every microaggression. She had investigated dozens of officers like these men who viewed their badge as license to harass rather than protect. "I assure you I'm not doing anything illegal." I was simply making notes about the community. I'm looking to relocate for work. ID now. Harlan cut her off, his hand still hovering near his weapon. Harper nodded, reaching slowly toward her purse on the passenger seat. My identification is in my... Her words ended in a gasp as Tate grabbed her arm and yanked her backward. Hands where we can see them, he shouted, slamming her against the car. The impact knocked her government phone and wallet from her jacket pocket. They clattered to the wet pavement. That's my identification right there, Harper pointed calmly toward her fallen wallet. If you'll just... Harlan kicked the wallet away, sending it skidding under the car. We'll get to that. First, you're going to tell us what you're really doing here. The rain intensified, streaming down Harper's face. She noticed curtains twitching in nearby houses. Residents watching but not intervening. Cataloging this detail, she continued her mental documentation of every violation occurring. I work in law enforcement, she stated plainly, hoping to de-escalate. The officers exchanged glances before erupting in laughter. Yeah, security guard, maybe, Harlan mocked, watching the perfume counter at Macy's. Tate joined in, probably just watching too many cop shows, thinks she knows something. Harper didn't respond to the taunts. Instead, she memorized their badge numbers, name tags, unit designations, every procedural violation, every biased comment. Her mind worked like a camera, recording it all with clinical precision. Hands behind your back, Tate ordered, unholstering handcuffs with unnecessary force. The rain poured harder now, turning the elegant neighborhood into a blurred watercolor of streetlights and shadows. Harper felt the cold metal of handcuffs bite into her wrists as Tate fastened them too tight. Deliberately too tight. On your knees, Harlan commanded, shoving her shoulder. Harper hesitated. That's not necessary, I'm complying fully. Harlan responded by pushing her down. Harper's knees hit the wet pavement hard, sending a shock of pain up her legs. Water immediately soaked through her pants. The officers towered over her, flashlights aimed directly at her eyes, creating a disorienting glare. Please retrieve my identification, Harper requested calmly. You'll see I'm not a threat. Harlan struck her shoulder with his baton. Not hard enough to leave serious injury, but enough to hurt. Enough to humiliate. You don't make demands here. Harper flinched from the pain but kept her composure. Rain streamed down her face, mixing with a single tear she refused to acknowledge. She cataloged the assault in her mental record. Unprovoked physical strike, excessive restraint, forced, uncomfortable position. Tate radioed dispatch with her license plate. Run this plate for me. Vehicle possibly stolen. The radio crackled after a moment. Plate comes back to an Alexis Harper, registered 3 years ago in Virginia. No flags. Instead of acknowledging their mistake, the officers exchanged suspicious glances. Probably using fake registration, Harlan muttered loud enough for Harper to hear. Or the car's stolen. A second patrol car slowed as it passed. Sergeant Marcus Hale rolled down his window, surveyed the scene of the black woman kneeling handcuffed in the rain. Everything under control here? He asked casually. Harper looked up, hoping for intervention from a superior officer. Sir, I've done nothing wrong. These officers... We're good, Harlan interrupted. Just dealing with a suspicious person. Possible vehicle theft. Hale nodded, barely glancing at Harper. Need any assistance with the suspect? Nah, we got this, Tate replied with a smirk. Hale drove away without further question. Harper watched him go, adding another name to her mental record. Supervisory neglect. Failure to intervene. The rain plastered Harper's clothes to her body. She shivered involuntarily as Tate circled around her, flashlight beam traveling over her with inappropriate slowness. Cold, are we? He taunted. Should have thought about that before you came to the wrong neighborhood. As Harper shifted position to reduce the pressure on her knees, her jacket sleeve rode up. A small, elegant ring on her right hand caught the flashlight beam. The distinctive design of the National Police Academy graduation ring. Tate noticed, paused. Where'd you get that ring? Pawn shop? I earned it, Harper replied quietly. Playing dress up as a cop won't help you, he sneered. Probably just some fake costume jewelry. Harper remained silent, conserving her energy. Through the rain, she spotted a framed photo mounted on the patrol car's dashboard. The 5th Precinct's team photo. She recognized several faces from her briefing files, including officers with multiple complaints buried by internal affairs. Her eyes narrowed slightly as she memorized each face. Tomorrow, they would be sitting across from her desk. The precinct station buzzed with fluorescent lights and routine chaos. Harper sat handcuffed to a metal bench in the processing area, her expensive suit now stained and damp. Officers passed by, some curious, others indifferent. None offered assistance. Hours passed before anyone processed her paperwork. Harper used this time to observe everything: shift changes, security protocols, how officers interacted with different detainees. She noted which officers laughed at inappropriate jokes, which ones looked away from mistreatment, which few showed signs of discomfort at their colleagues' behavior. "Name?" the processing officer finally asked, not looking up from his computer. "Alexis Harper," she answered calmly. "Address?" "I'm relocating, currently staying at the Westridge Hotel." The officer looked up now, skeptical. "That's a pretty expensive place for someone who was casing houses." "I wasn't casing houses," Harper corrected him. "And I'd like my phone call now." The officer laughed. "You'll get it when we're ready. We're backed up tonight." Harper cataloged another violation: unnecessary delay of due process rights. More time passed before they granted her call. By then, it was late into the night. At the phone, Harper dialed not a lawyer, but Police Commissioner Victor Lang. When he answered, she spoke in the coded language they had established during her hiring. "Commissioner, the Sunset audit has begun ahead of schedule," she said calmly. "I've encountered several quality control issues requiring immediate documentation. Code Amber." Lang immediately understood she was conducting an unplanned integrity test. "Location: 5th Precinct, Officers Harlan and Tate." "Understood. Maintain protocol. Extraction within the hour." Harper hung up, feeling the desk sergeant's curious gaze. He had noticed something different about her: her composure, her precise language, the way she stood, despite her disheveled appearance. Uncertainty flickered across his face. After some time, a call came in. The sergeant took it, then looked at Harper with new confusion. "You're being released. No charges, no apology, no explanation. Just a sudden reversal that raised no alarms for anyone except the increasingly uncomfortable desk sergeant." They returned her belongings in a plastic bag. Her wallet, her phone, her dignity they kept. Harper walked out into the pre-dawn darkness, called a rideshare, and returned to her hotel. Once inside her room, she peeled off her wet, muddied clothes. Purple bruises were already forming, where the baton struck her shoulder, where the handcuffs bit into her wrists, where her knees hit the pavement. She photographed each injury methodically. Then she opened her laptop and began typing every detail, still crystal clear in her mind. Every name, every violation, every witness. She accessed secure files using her federal credentials. There they were: previous complaints against officers Harlan and Tate, 6 excessive force allegations in 2 years, all mysteriously closed without action, reports buried by internal affairs, witnesses who suddenly became unavailable. Harper noticed something else. The pattern extended beyond these 2 officers. Sergeant Marcus Hale appeared in 3 of the buried reports. The current precinct captain signed off on each dismissal. It was systemic. It was calculated. It was exactly what she had been sent to fix. Harper touched the bruise on her shoulder, wincing slightly. Then her expression hardened into resolve. "I wasn't planning on starting this way," she whispered to herself. "But they've just given me exactly what I need." The officers who assaulted her didn't realize they had just handed their new captain a perfect case for departmental overhaul. Morning shift at the 5th Precinct. Officers Harlan and Tate walked in, coffee in hand, laughing as they recounted last night's events to their colleagues. "So there she is, designer clothes getting soaked, trying to tell us she's some kind of cop." Harlan snickered, miming Harper's kneeling position. You should have seen her face when I gave her a little love tap with the baton. Several officers laughed appreciatively. Tate added, "She was definitely casing houses. Probably has a whole crew waiting to hit Oakwood once she maps out the security systems." "Did she resist?" another officer asked, eyes gleaming with interest. "Not exactly," Harlan admitted. "But she had that attitude, acting all superior like she had rights or something." More laughter rippled through the group. Only Officer Marcus Rivera, a rookie still in his probationary period, remained silent. His discomfort was evident, though he didn't speak up. Across town, Harper sat in Commissioner Victor Lang's office, her bruises now darkly visible against her skin. She slid a tablet across his desk with her complete report. "Jesus," Lang muttered, scrolling through photos of her injuries. "I knew the Fifth had problems, but this is why you hired me," Harper finished for him. "What happened to me isn't unique. It's their standard operating procedure." Lang reviewed her documentation. Meticulous, comprehensive, damning. "You weren't supposed to start until next week. We should file charges immediately." Harper shook her head. "Not yet. This gives us something better. Authentic evidence of their behavior when they think no one's watching. I want to use this as the foundation for structural reform, not just punish 2 officers." Lang studied her with newfound respect. "What's your plan?" "I need a few days. Let me trace the complaint patterns. Identify which officers can be salvaged and which need to go. We'll need to replace at least half the command structure." The commissioner nodded slowly. "You have full authority. Whatever resources you need." Harper returned to her hotel that afternoon to find her door slightly ajar. She paused, then pushed it open carefully. Nothing appeared stolen, but her belongings had been subtly disturbed. Someone had searched her room. She checked the hotel's security system on her tablet. No official entry recorded, but there was a gap in the hallway camera footage. Several minutes precisely when she was meeting with Lang. Her rental car information from last night's arrest would have revealed her location. The message was clear. Intimidation. They were watching her. Harper made a call on her secure line. "I need a complete background check on Officers Harlan and Tate. Also, Sergeant Marcus Hale, priority level 1. She ended the call and stood at her window, looking out at the city she had been tasked with protecting, even from some of its protectors. An anonymous text arrived on her phone. "Back off, or next time you won't walk away." Harper stared at the threatening text, screenshots it, then added it to her growing evidence file. Rather than intimidating her, the message only confirmed the depth of the corruption she was facing. She accelerated her timetable. That afternoon, she visited the Internal Affairs Division of the 5th Precinct, presenting herself not as the incoming captain, but as a civilian consultant reviewing complaint procedures. The II, Lieutenant Julian Reed, welcomed her with practiced politeness. "The commissioner asked me to evaluate your processes," Harper explained, offering falsified credentials that identified her as a civilian oversight specialist. "I'd like to see how citizen complaints are handled, from intake to resolution." "Of course," Reed agreed too quickly. "We take community concerns very seriously." Harper watched his eyes carefully. "I'm particularly interested in excessive force complaints over the past year and a half." Something flickered in Reed's expression. Weariness, perhaps guilt. "Those files would require special clearance." "Which I have," Harper countered smoothly, sliding over the commissioner's authorization. Reluctantly, Reed provided access to the digital records. As Harper reviewed the files, a disturbing pattern emerged. Complaints didn't just disappear. They were systematically dismantled. Witness statements altered. Body camera footage conveniently corrupted. Medical reports minimized. And it wasn't just Harlan and Tate. 10 officers appeared repeatedly in buried complaints. All remained on active duty. All received commendations for proactive policing. Meanwhile, across town, officers Harlan and Tate grew increasingly paranoid about the woman they had detained. Their usual confidence had transformed into nervous energy. "She said she worked in law enforcement," Harlan reminded his partner as they patrolled. "What if she was telling the truth?" "So what?" Tate scoffed, but uncertainty edged his voice. Nobody's going to believe some random black woman over us. Harlan wasn't convinced. We should run her name through the system, see what comes up. They convinced Sergeant Marcus Hale to approve an unauthorized background check, a federal database search using Harper's driver's license information from her arrest. The results were incomplete, but troubling. Alexis Harper, former military police, current law enforcement credentials in the federal system. The specific agency was restricted, which only increased their unease. She could be internal affairs, Hale muttered, rubbing his face. Or worse, Justice Department. We didn't do anything wrong, Tate insisted, though his voice lacked conviction. She was suspicious. We followed procedure. You struck her with your baton, Hale reminded him. Was that in your report? Silence fell between them. We need to make sure she drops this, Harlan finally said. Otherwise, we're all exposed. From her unmarked car across the street, Harper photographed the three men through her telephoto lens. She had been tracking patrol patterns, noting which officers deviated from assigned routes, which ones targeted specific demographics. She noticed Officer Marcus Rivera consistently breaking from the aggressive patterns of his colleagues. While other officers clustered around minority neighborhoods, Rivera maintained his assigned routes, treated all civilians with the same respectful demeanor, regardless of appearance. Harper made a note in her file. Potential ally, Officer Marcus Rivera. Whoever she is, Sergeant Hale told Harlan and Tate. She's connected. The commissioner's office just called asking questions about her detention. The next morning, Harper returned to Oakwood. This time, she made no attempt to conceal her presence. She parked her car legally, stepped out with a professional camera, and began openly documenting police interactions. She photographed a patrol car, stopping a Latino teenager on a bicycle, the officer's aggressive stance, the unnecessary pat-down, the teenager's resigned expression. He had been through this before. Minutes later, Harlan and Tate spotted her. Their patrol car screeched to a halt beside her. Harlan exited first, hand already resting on his weapon. "You again," he growled. "What do you think you're doing?" Harper continued taking photos, her camera now capturing their approach. Documenting public servants in public spaces, perfectly legal activity. Tate stepped forward, deliberately invading her personal space. "You're interfering with police business. That's obstruction of justice." "I'm standing on a public sidewalk, observing from a legal distance," Harper countered calmly. "There's relevant case law establishing my right to do so. Would you like the citations?" Her calm legal knowledge clearly unnerved them. Harlan's face flushed with anger. "Listen, lady, I don't know what your game is, but you need to stop this now." His voice dropped to a threatening whisper. "Things happen in this neighborhood. Accidents. People get hurt." Harper met his gaze steadily, her camera still recording. "Are you threatening a civilian, Officer Harlan? That would be a violation of Department Policy Section 4.13, as well as state law regarding abuse of authority." Harlan stepped back, surprised she knew his name and the specific policy. Before he could respond, 2 more patrol cars arrived. Officers emerged, forming an intimidating circle around Harper. "Is there a problem here?" Sergeant Hale asked, though his tone made clear he wasn't addressing Harper. "She's harassing officers, filming us without consent," Tate claimed. "Actually, consent isn't required when photographing public officials performing public duties," Harper replied, unfazed by the growing police presence. "The courts have been quite clear on this issue." Hale turned to her, voice cold. "I suggest you move along before we find something to charge you with." "Are you suggesting you would fabricate charges, Sergeant Hale?" Harper asked loudly enough for her camera's microphone to capture. "That would constitute serious misconduct." The officers exchanged uncomfortable glances. This wasn't going according to their usual script. Officer Marcus Rivera arrived in another patrol car, taking in the scene with visible concern. He approached the group, positioning himself slightly apart from his colleagues. "Ma'am, is everything okay here?" he asked Harper directly, breaking protocol by not consulting with the senior officers first. "Shut up, Rivera," Harlan snapped. "She's being detained for questioning." "On what grounds?" Rivera asked, his rookie status not preventing his challenge. "What's the reasonable suspicion?" Harlan turned on him. "You questioning me now? Know your place, probationer." The tension escalated until Harper decided she had captured enough evidence. She lowered her camera but kept it recording. "I believe I've observed enough for today," she said calmly. "Officer, Sergeant." She nodded to each, deliberately using their names. "I'll be seeing you all very soon." "I'll see you all very soon," Harper told them calmly as she walked away, leaving the officers unsettled by her confidence. Morning light streamed through the windows of the 5th Precinct as officers gathered for the change of command ceremony. The current captain's retirement had been scheduled for weeks, though rumors suggested the commissioner accelerated the timeline. Officers stood in formal rows, dress uniforms crisp, brass polished. Harlan and Tate adjusted their collars near the back, whispering about their neighborhood stalker. "Bet she filed some complaint that goes nowhere." Harlan snickered, straightening his badge. "Already took care of it," Tate replied with a smirk. "Reed in 2A owes me. Any complaint she files will disappear faster than our overtime reports." The precinct fell silent as Commissioner Victor Lang entered, his expression unusually grave. He approached the podium without the customary pleasantries. "Officers of the 5th Precinct," Lang began, his voice carrying authority that demanded attention. "Captain Grant's retirement is effective immediately. The department thanks him for his years of service." Murmurs rippled through the room. The abruptness was unexpected. Recent events have highlighted the need for new leadership and comprehensive reforms in this precinct. Lang continued. "Effective immediately, I am installing a new commanding officer who will implement these changes." The side door opened. Every head turned. Captain Alexis Harper walked in wearing her full-dress uniform, adorned with commendations and service medals. Her posture was military precise, her expression composed. The room temperature seemed to drop as recognition dawned. In the back row, Harlan and Tate froze. The blood drained from their faces as the woman they had forced to kneel in the rain now stood at the front of the room, 4 gold bars gleaming on her shoulders. "I present Captain Alexis Harper," Lang announced. "Her distinguished career includes military police service, federal oversight experience, and successful reform implementations in 3 major departments. She has my complete confidence and full authority." Harper approached the podium with measured steps. Her eyes scanned the room, pausing briefly on each face involved in her detention. She noted their reactions: shock, fear, confusion, but her expression revealed nothing. "Thank you, Commissioner," she began, her voice steady and authoritative. "I believe in the vital role law enforcement plays in community safety, but that role depends entirely on trust, integrity, and equal protection under the law." The room remained deathly silent. "Starting today, this precinct will implement new body camera protocols. All interactions with the public will be recorded without exception. Officers will undergo bias training, de-escalation certification, and regular performance reviews focused on constitutional policing." She turned a page in her notes with deliberate slowness. "Accountability will be paramount. Complaints will be investigated thoroughly and transparently. No exceptions, no matter the officer's rank or tenure." Harper made eye contact with Harlan, then Tate, then Hale. Each man seemed to shrink under her gaze. "Those who cannot or will not adapt to these standards will not remain on this force." She closed her portfolio with a snap that made several officers flinch. "Officers Harlan, Tate, and Sergeant Hale will report to my office immediately following this ceremony. Officer Rivera as well." The named officers exchanged panicked glances. Rivera looked confused but resolute. After the ceremony concluded, Harper entered her new office. She removed her dress jacket, carefully hanging it on a wooden coat stand. The movement revealed the dark bruises still visible on her wrists from the handcuffs. Harlan, Tate, and Hale entered first, standing uncomfortably at attention. Rivera followed, maintaining a noticeable distance from the others. Harper sat behind her desk, opened a folder, and looked up at the men who had assaulted her just days earlier. 3 nights ago, she began, conversationally, as if discussing the weather. I was illegally detained, physically assaulted and humiliated by officers of this precinct while conducting an observation assessment of the district. She turned the folder around, showing them photographs of her injuries. Close-ups of bruised wrists, the baton mark on her shoulder, her muddied, expensive suit. Following this incident, my hotel room was illegally searched. I received threatening text messages, and an unauthorized background check was run on my credentials. Harlan swallowed visibly. Tate stared at the floor. Hale's face had turned ashen. Officer Rivera, Harper addressed the rookie directly. You may be wondering why you're here. Yes, Captain, he answered, standing straighter. You're here because you attempted to de-escalate yesterday's confrontation. You questioned improper procedure. You showed the integrity these men lack. She gestured toward the others. You're being reassigned to lead our new community relations unit. Effective immediately. You're dismissed. Rivera blinked in surprise, saluted, and exited. The door closed behind him with finality. Harper rose slowly, walking around her desk to stand directly before the remaining officers. Despite being shorter than all 3 men, she somehow towered over them. I was recruited specifically for this precinct after serving on the Federal Law Enforcement Reform Task Force, she revealed. My detention was unplanned, but it provided first-hand evidence of exactly why I was brought here. She tapped the folder containing her documentation. Every violation, every biased comment, every procedural failure has been recorded and verified. The illegal search of my room was captured on hotel security cameras I had enhanced. The threatening text has been traced to Officer Tate's personal phone. The men stood in stunned silence as she continued, her voice never rising yet carrying unmistakable authority. You have exactly 1 hour to decide. Resign immediately or face full administrative charges and criminal prosecution for assault under color of authority. The officers' faces drained of all remaining color as they realized the woman they had humiliated now held their entire futures in her bruised hands. The 5th precinct transformed, seemingly overnight. Officers arrived to find internal affairs investigators from the state level conducting interviews. Technology specialists installed new body camera systems. Training coordinators set up mandatory sessions on constitutional policing and bias recognition. At the center of this whirlwind stood Captain Harper, methodically dismantling decades of entrenched corruption with surgical precision. By midday, Sergeant Hale had submitted his resignation. He cleaned out his locker under the watchful eyes of IIA officers, avoiding eye contact with colleagues. His police career was over, but the negotiated silence agreement he signed shielded him from criminal charges in exchange for testimony against higher-ranking officers. Harlan and Tate, however, refused to resign. They arrived at the precinct flanked by union representatives, confident the blue wall would protect them as it always had. Captain, the police union attorney began when they entered Harper's office. These allegations are concerning, but my clients categorically deny any wrongdoing during a lawful detention of a suspicious person. Harper didn't look up from her paperwork. Your clients have been suspended pending investigation. Their badges and service weapons should be surrendered immediately. On what grounds? The attorney demanded. This appears to be a personal vendetta. Now Harper raised her eyes, her gaze steel. On the grounds of excessive force, false imprisonment, filing false reports, conducting illegal searches, making terroristic threats, and civil rights violations. She slid a flash drive across the desk. The evidence is extensive. The attorney picked up the drive cautiously. We'll need time to review this. You have until the disciplinary hearing 3 days from now. Harper turned to Harlan and Tate directly. Unless you'd like to reconsider, resignation. "This is bullshit," Harlan spat. "It's our word against yours." Harper allowed herself the slightest smile. "Actually, it's your word against mine. The dash cam footage, civilian witnesses, and your own text messages. But we'll let the hearing committee decide." After they left, Officer Marcus Rivera knocked tentatively on her door. "Captain, the community leaders are here for the meeting you scheduled." Harper welcomed a diverse group representing various neighborhood associations. For the first time in precinct history, residents were invited to express their concerns directly to command staff. They spoke of racial profiling, selective enforcement, harassment. Harper took notes, asked questions, listened. "This won't change overnight," she told them honestly. "But it will change. You have my word." Across town, City Manager Victor Lang received an urgent call from the mayor. "Have you seen this? Harper's tearing apart the 5th Precinct. The union's threatening legal action against the city." "I'm handling it," Lang assured him, though anxiety edged his voice. He immediately scheduled a meeting with Harper. When they met that afternoon, Lang didn't bother with pleasantries. "Captain, while we appreciate your enthusiasm, this disruption is causing serious concerns. Perhaps a more gradual approach." Harper interrupted by placing a thick binder on the table between them. "This contains dozens of documented cases of civil rights violations by 5th Precinct officers over the past year and a half, all buried, all representing potential lawsuits against the city." Lang stared at the binder. "The statute of limitations hasn't expired on any of them," Harper continued. "One successful suit could cost taxpayers millions. Dozens would bankrupt the city." "What do you want?" Lang asked quietly. "Your full support for comprehensive reforms, budget approval for training and equipment, and no interference with personnel decisions." Lang hesitated, then nodded slowly. "You'll have it." In the days that followed, Harper's investigation expanded. Electronic records revealed a pattern of evidence tampering in cases involving excessive force. The trail led directly to Lieutenant Julian Reed in Internal Affairs, and beyond him to the recently retired Captain Elias Grant. Commissioner Victor Lang reviewed Harper's findings with growing concern. "This is worse than we thought." "It usually is," Harper replied. "The corruption's systemic. We need to consider criminal charges for several officers, including Grant. The political fallout will be significant. The liability of doing nothing is greater." Meanwhile, community members who witnessed Harper's detention began coming forward with their own stories and evidence. Mrs. Elena Vargas, whose security cameras captured the entire incident from her front window, provided the footage to local journalist Maya Ellison. Ellison began connecting the dots between Harper's detention and the sudden departmental overhaul. Her investigation uncovered dozens of similar incidents in Oakwood alone. Minorities detained without cause, subjected to excessive force, then charged with resisting arrest or disorderly conduct to justify the officer's actions. By the morning of the hearing, her exposé ran in the local paper. New police captain experienced department's bias firsthand. The article included stills from Mrs. Vargas's security footage, showing Harper forced to her knees in the rain. The images spread rapidly across social media, accompanied by calls for accountability. The disciplinary hearing room filled beyond capacity. Community members, officers, media representatives crowded the space. Harlan and Tate arrived with their union attorneys, their earlier confidence now tinged with visible anxiety. Harper presented the evidence methodically. She began with her own detailed account supported by photographs of her injuries. The dashcam footage played next, clearly showing the officer's unprovoked aggression. Mrs. Vargas's security camera footage provided an unobstructed view of Harlan striking Harper with his baton. The attorneys attempted procedural objections, questioning the admissibility of certain evidence, the chain of custody, Harper's objectivity given her personal involvement. Each objection was overruled by the hearing committee, which included newly appointed civilian oversight members. Then came the witnesses. Previous victims of Harlan and Tate's misconduct testified one after another. A college student detained while walking home from the library. A delivery driver stopped 3 times in 1 week. An elderly man grabbed it from his own front yard while gardening. The pattern became impossible to ignore or explain away. The officers' body cameras mysteriously malfunctioned during each incident. Their reports described aggressive behavior, contradicted by witness statements. Internal Affairs dismissed every complaint without investigation. As the evidence mounted, Harlan and Tate watched their careers crumble in real time. Their attorneys passed increasingly desperate notes, suggesting new strategies, different arguments, but nothing could counter the overwhelming documentation Harper had assembled. The hearing committee voted unanimously for termination. Additionally, they recommended criminal charges for civil rights violations, falsifying police reports, and witness intimidation. As they left the hearing room in disgrace, Harlan passed close to Harper. "This isn't over," he muttered under his breath. "You've made enemies you don't even know about yet." Harper met his gaze evenly. "That's exactly the mindset that brought us here today, Mr. Harlan. The difference is you're no longer in a position to act on it." She watched them walk away, their badges and service weapons already surrendered, their authority stripped, not from vengeance, but from necessity. The system can't function when those entrusted with power abuse it so blatantly. Harper returned to her office where Commissioner Lang waited with the mayor. "The union's threatening legal action," the mayor said without preamble. "Let them," Harper responded calmly. "Our documentation is impeccable, and Officer Rivera has agreed to testify about the culture of misconduct he witnessed during his probationary period." The mayor studied her with newfound respect. "You've certainly made an impression, Captain, though not everyone's happy about these changes." "Reform isn't designed to make people happy," Harper replied. "It's designed to make systems just." "This isn't the end," Harper announced to the assembled reporters outside. "This is just the beginning of real accountability." In the months that followed, the 5th Precinct transformed under Harper's leadership. The physical space itself reflected the change. Walls that once displayed only officer commendations now showcased community partnership achievements and citizen appreciation letters. Morning briefing found Harper addressing her officers, many of them new faces recruited for their commitment to ethical policing. "Our quarterly results show progress," she told them, projecting statistics on the wall screen. "Excessive force complaints down significantly. Arrest rates down while successful prosecutions are up." Officers nodded with professional satisfaction. These numbers represent more than statistics. They reflect a fundamental shift in approach. Quality of arrests over quantity, de-escalation over confrontation, community trust over fear. "Most significantly," Harper continued, "response times have improved in all neighborhoods equally. No more prioritizing Oakwood over Riverside." Sergeant Marcus Rivera, recently promoted, led the community engagement unit that had become the precinct's pride. His team developed innovative programs, citizen police academies taught in multiple languages, youth mentorship initiatives, regular community forums where officers listened more than they spoke. "The Coffee with a Cop program has been particularly successful," Rivera reported. "We've had hundreds of residents participate in the past month alone." In her office after the briefing, Harper reviewed applications for the recruitment program she established. Scholarships for local residents interested in law enforcement careers, with emphasis on candidates from underrepresented communities. "These candidates all meet our criteria," her assistant noted. "Several are bilingual, one has a social work background. Schedule interviews for all of them," Harper approved, "and follow up with last month's recruits. Make sure they're receiving proper support at the academy." Across town, the city council meeting chamber filled with residents and media. Harper took the podium to present her assessment. "The reforms implemented at the 5th Precinct demonstrate that constitutional policing and effective policing are not opposing concepts," she explained. "In fact, they're inseparable." Council members who initially resisted her methods now cited the precinct's improved metrics with pride. The Budget Committee had unanimously approved funding for expanding the body camera program to all precincts. "The most telling statistic," Harper concluded, is that civilian cooperation with investigations has increased significantly. When communities trust their police, they become partners in public safety. The ripple effect spread beyond the 5th Precinct. Other captains throughout the department, initially skeptical, now consulted Harper about implementing similar reforms. Police academies requested her training materials. Law enforcement journals published case studies of the transformation. A brief montage illustrated the changing reality. Officers assisting elderly residents without condescension. De-escalation techniques successfully employed during a mental health crisis. Community members approaching patrol cars to offer information rather than avoiding police contact. Former skeptics became vocal supporters. Mrs. Elena Vargas, whose security camera footage helped expose Harlan and Tate, now served on the Civilian Oversight Committee. For the first time, she told a community meeting, "I feel like the police work for us, not against us." Even Officer Elena Torres, initially resistant to Harper's changes, now led bias recognition training sessions. "I didn't realize how many assumptions I was making on patrol," she admitted to her colleagues. "This approach actually makes our jobs easier, not harder." Harper walked through the precinct, observing the transformation with cautious optimism. The culture was changing, but institutional reform was always fragile, always at risk of reversal, without constant vigilance. Her phone rang, the commissioner's office. "Captain Harper," her assistant called out. "Commissioner Lang is on line 1. He says it's about your next assignment. Something about the central precinct having similar issues." Harper smiled slightly. Her work here was far from finished, but the model could now be replicated across the entire department. A year later, Harper strolled along Oakwood's tree-lined streets, the same neighborhood where officers once forced her to her knees in the rain. Now residents waved as she passed. Some stopped to chat, sharing community updates or expressing gratitude for specific improvements. "Captain Harper," Mrs. Elena Vargas called from her garden. "The new youth center opens next week. Will you speak at the ceremony?" "I wouldn't miss it," Harper promised with a genuine smile. She continued her walk, passing a small shopping mall where a familiar face caught her attention. Former Officer Tate, now wearing the uniform of a security guard, noticed her at the same moment. His expression hardened with resentment, but he quickly averted his gaze, unwilling to meet her eyes. Harper didn't linger or gloat. His position wasn't about personal victory. It was the natural consequence of his choices. She had heard Harlan faced harsher consequences, serving probation for civil rights violations after the criminal investigation concluded. Several other former officers had similar fates. The system doesn't forgive those who betray their oath. At noon, Harper chaired the monthly meeting of the Community Police Advisory Council, a diverse group of officers and civilian representatives that didn't exist a year earlier. They gathered around a conference table as equals, reviewing progress and ongoing challenges with candor. Response times in Riverdale still lag by a few minutes compared to other neighborhoods, a community advocate pointed out. "We've identified the staffing gap," Sergeant Rivera responded. "The new shift pattern should address it starting next month." The conversation continued, honest, sometimes tense, but consistently productive. Issues were raised not as accusations, but as problems to solve together. This, Harper reflected, represented the most significant change: the shift from adversarial to collaborative relationships. Later that afternoon, Harper met with the newest academy graduates assigned to her precinct. These young officers had never known the Fifth's toxic culture, having been trained under the reform standards from the beginning. "Your badge carries both authority and responsibility," she told them, her voice carrying the weight of personal experience. "How you use that authority defines not just your career, but the safety and trust of the communities you serve." She didn't share the story of her own detention. That narrative had served its purpose and now belonged to history. Instead, she focused on their future, on the department they were helping to build. "The hardest moments will test your commitment to justice over convenience, to protection over power," she continued. "Those moments define who you are as officers and as people." In her office that evening, Harper reviewed the quarterly performance reports. Crime statistics told only part of the story. The qualitative metrics: increased witness cooperation, community engagement, officer retention, painted a more complete picture of a department transforming its relationship with the community. Her walls displayed photographs from community events, policy reform announcements, positive news coverage. Among them hung a framed note from a teenage girl. "Thank you for making me feel safe in my neighborhood for the first time." Harper touched the frame gently. This was why the difficult battles mattered. Not for policy manuals or statistical improvements, but for the lived reality of people who deserved both safety and dignity. As the setting sun cast long shadows across her office, Harper reflected on the journey from humiliation in the rain to systemic transformation. The work remained unfinished. True reform was never complete, only sustained through constant vigilance and commitment. But the foundation had been laid for something better, something that honored the true meaning of protect and serve. If you found yourself invested in Captain Harper's journey from victim to reformer, you'll love what's coming next on Beat Stories. Hit that like button if you believe in holding power accountable, no matter who wields it. Subscribe to Beat Stories for more compelling narratives that explore justice, redemption, and the courage to stand against systemic wrongs. Turn on notifications so you never miss our next upload. Beat Stories, where every tale has a pulse. See you in the next one. This isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of what happens when truth meets visibility. At Beat Stories, we believe exposure is the first step to transformation. Subscribe and stay tuned, because the next story might be yours.